I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here we are. My name's Mike, and I've been married to Lisa for about 8 years now. We had a pretty good life, 2 kids, decent jobs, a house in the suburbs. Nothing spectacular, but it worked. Honestly, I thought we were solid. Sure, every marriage has its rough patches, but Lisa always seemed to hold things together. Lately, though, I've been noticing little things that didn't add up. She was more irritable, snapping at the kids over nothing, and she'd avoid certain conversations. I'd come home from work early a few times, and she'd be out late with some excuse about running errands or meeting a friend. I didn't think much of it at first. I mean, maybe she was stressed or just tired. People get like that, right? But then I started catching glimpses, text messages on her phone that she'd quickly hide when I walked in, weird late-night calls she'd answer in hushed tones, and the way she'd suddenly become very attentive to her phone whenever I was nearby. I also noticed she was being really protective over our daughter, Emily, especially during her tutoring sessions. Lisa would sit just outside the door, listening intently, and she'd get defensive if I tried to ask about Emily's progress or how her day went. I thought maybe she was just worried about Emily's grades or something, but honestly, there was an underlying tension I couldn't quite put my finger on. Something felt wrong, but I kept telling myself I was overthinking. Until the night I came home early. I'd ordered dinner, Chinese takeout, and I was looking forward to relaxing after a long day. I parked the car, grabbed the bag, and headed inside, expecting Lisa to be home with Emily working on homework or watching TV. Instead, I heard noises coming from the study. That's unusual because Lisa usually keeps herself busy around the house or goes out with friends. I figured maybe Emily was up late doing homework and Lisa was helping her. I didn't bother knocking. I just pushed the door open. That's when I saw her. Lisa was on her knees, and next to her was Tommy, Emily's math tutor. They weren't just sitting and talking. No, they were clearly involved in some kind of intimate act. I saw her hand on his leg, her head tilted back, and his face buried in her neck. My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife, the woman I loved and trusted, was cheating on me with our daughter's tutor. The shock was physical. My mind refused to process what I was witnessing. It was like the world froze for a second, then I felt this strange mix of rage and heartbreak swell up inside me. I stood there frozen, clutching the takeout bag, trying to wrap my head around what I'd just seen. How long had this been going on? How many times? Was this just a one-off thing, or had they been doing this for a while? It was a nightmare, the kind you wake up from and can't believe wasn't real. But it was, clear as day. I didn't say a word. I just turned around silently and went straight to my car. I sat there for a long time, staring at the steering wheel, feeling completely numb. The betrayal hit me harder than I expected. I thought about everything, her smiles, her lies, the way she'd been so clingy and secretive lately. It all added up now. She'd been cheating with Tommy, our daughter's tutor, right under my nose. I'd always trusted her, and she threw that trust away for what? A quick fuck. A way to feel desirable. I didn't even know what to feel at that moment. Just this hollow ache deep inside, like my heart had been ripped out. That night I didn't sleep. I kept replaying that image in my head, the sound of her voice, the way she looked when she was with him. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do, but I knew this wasn't going to end quietly. Lisa had crossed a line I wasn't sure I could ever come back from, and honestly, I was furious. Not just hurt, but furious. How could she do this to me? To Emily? It felt like the foundation of everything I believed in was shattered in that one moment. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't look at Lisa the same way, and I sure as hell couldn't trust her anymore. I spent the next few days trying to figure out what to do, but honestly, I was just angry. Hot, boiling anger that I couldn't keep out of my head. Every time I saw her, I felt this overwhelming urge to lash out, to confront her, but I knew that wouldn't do any good. Not yet. I needed a plan, something precise, something that would expose her for what she really was. I started by digging through her phone. I knew that was risky. I didn't want her to catch me, but I also couldn't stay in the dark. I slipped my phone into her purse one morning when she was getting ready for work. It was nerve-wracking, but I had to see the messages, the calls, the evidence. As I scrolled through her texts, I found them. There were dozens of messages, flirty, suggestive, and downright explicit between her and Tommy. They'd been talking for months, hiding it from me like it was some big secret. She'd send him pictures, ask about his day, joke about sneaking around. The worst part was reading how she lied to my face about ever seeing anyone else. She'd claimed she was just tutoring Emily, that she enjoyed helping her with math, that she loved our family and would never cheat. Meanwhile, she was sexting this guy, planning secret meetups and probably fucking him during those late-night sessions I'd always suspected but never caught. Seeing those messages made my blood boil. I felt like I was punched in the gut all over again, but this time I had proof. Cold, undeniable proof that she'd been lying to my face, all while betraying everything we had. That's when I started to really think about my next move. I couldn't just walk away from this. No, I needed to confront her, but I also wanted her to know I knew everything. I decided I'd wait for the right moment, get her alone, catch her in her lies, and see her reaction. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't some fool who was just going to take this betrayal sitting down. She thought she was clever, sneaking around behind my back, but I was going to make her regret it. A few days later, I came home early again. I planned to catch her off guard, maybe record her if I could. As I got close to the house, I saw her car parked in the driveway. She was home. I felt a surge of adrenaline, part anger, part determination. I parked down the street and waited. Then I saw her through the window. She was in the living room, texting on her phone. Her tone was flirty, her face lit up with that fake smile she put on when she was lying. That was the moment I knew I had her. I quietly turned on my phone and started recording, planning to confront her once I had the evidence. I took a deep breath and went inside. The second I stepped into the living room, she looked up and tried to put on that bitchy, dismissive attitude she always used when she was annoyed. "Oh, you're home early," she snapped, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Must have missed your precious dinner." I just looked at her, my voice calm but cold. "Yeah, I missed a lot. Seems I missed you cheating on me, Lisa." Her face instantly froze, and her eyes widened with that fake innocence she always drags out when she's about to lie her way through something. She started to stammer, trying to deny it, but I raised my phone, showing her the recordings and the texts I'd found. Her face turned red, then pale. She tried to spin some bullshit about how I was overreacting, that Tommy was just helping Emily, that it was nothing serious. But I'd heard enough. I knew the truth, and it cut through her lies like a knife. I told her I saw what she was doing, that I knew about the sexting, the meetings, everything. Her bravado shattered. She started crying, blaming me for being paranoid, accusing me of not trusting her, that I was just jealous and insecure. That's when I realized there was no point in arguing with a liar who's already been caught. My head was spinning, but I stayed calm, too calm maybe. I made it clear I wasn't going to be a fool anymore. I told her she had to leave, that I couldn't live with her under the same roof after what I'd seen and heard. She begged and pleaded, threw out all sorts of excuses. She was stressed, she was lonely, she didn't mean anything by it. But I knew better. I saw who she was, and I knew I couldn't trust her again. That night I felt every emotion I could possibly feel, all at once. Anger, betrayal, sadness, disgust. More than anything, I felt a deep sense of loss. I'd lost the woman I thought I knew, the woman I loved, and in her place was someone I didn't recognize, someone who could cheat on her own daughter, who lied so easily, who had no shame. I didn't know what this meant for me now, but I knew I couldn't stay. Not after all this. I needed to figure out what was next, how to pick up the pieces of a broken trust I'd never get back. The days that followed were a haze. I won't lie, it was a roller coaster of emotions. Anger, sadness, a strange sense of relief that I finally knew the truth, and a deep, aching sense of betrayal that cut so deep I wondered how I'd ever trust anyone again. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut so hard that everything I believed about my life and my marriage was shattered into 1,000 pieces. I moved out of the house, not because I wanted to, but because I knew staying there would only make things worse. I could still see her face every time I closed my eyes, her fake tears, her manipulative pleas, trying to make me feel like I was the bad guy, but I refused to be played anymore. I had enough evidence now, enough reasons to finally stand my ground. I rented a small apartment nearby, just enough space to breathe, to think, to decide what the hell I was going to do next. In the meantime, I started to gather everything I could: screenshots of her messages, recordings of her voice, the physical evidence of her affair. I wanted to be prepared, not just for her, but for whatever legal or emotional fallout was coming. I also kept an eye on Emily, who was blissfully unaware of her mom's betrayal at this point. That little girl didn't deserve to be caught in the crossfire of adult mistakes, but I knew I had to handle things carefully. I didn't want Emily to hate her mom, but I also couldn't ignore what Lisa had done. One afternoon, I decided I'd had enough of the silence. I needed to confront Lisa one last time, not just to tell her I knew the truth, but to see if she'd try to spin her way out of it. I went back to the house and knocked on the door. When she opened it, she looked terrible, pale, tired, eyes swollen from crying. She tried to put on her usual bitchy attitude, expecting me to fold and beg her to come back, but I wasn't in the mood for her games anymore. I told her I knew everything, that her lies, her sexting, her cheating, everything. I laid out the evidence I'd collected. Her face twisted into a mixture of anger and desperation. "You don't understand, Mike," she snapped. "You're just jealous, you're insecure. Tommy's just helping Emily with her math, that's all. You're overreacting, you're crazy." I stared at her, feeling nothing but disgust. I told her I'd heard enough of her bullshit, that I was done pretending she was innocent, that I wasn't going to be a fool anymore. She tried to deny it all, claiming I'd misinterpreted things, that she was just tired and stressed, that she loved our family and would never do something so horrible. But I'd heard enough. I told her she needed to leave immediately, that I wasn't going to stay under the same roof with someone who betrayed me so completely. She threw a tantrum, crying, screaming, blaming me for everything. Said I was turning her into the villain, that I was overreacting, that she'd never cheat on me or Emily. But her words rang hollow. I told her I didn't want to hear her lies anymore. I was done. Done with the cheating, done with the lies, done with pretending she was innocent. I wanted her gone, and I wanted her out of our daughter's life until she could prove she was serious about fixing this mess. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, leaving me alone in that empty house filled with memories of a marriage I thought was forever. That night I sat on the sofa with a bottle of whiskey and stared at the ceiling. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of questions. How could she do this? How did I not see it coming? Could I ever forgive her? Did I want to? The truth was, I was exhausted, emotionally and physically. I didn't want to make any rash decisions. I just wanted to breathe, to process what had happened, and to decide what my next move should be. In the days that followed, I kept telling myself I'd be okay. It was a huge blow, but I had to stay strong for myself and for Emily. I knew what I really needed was time to think, to heal, and to figure out whether I could ever rebuild anything from this wreckage. But secretly, I wondered if I'd ever feel the same about Lisa again. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I loved, turned out to be someone else entirely. Someone capable of lying, cheating, and breaking our family apart. That equation for trust, yeah, it's been permanently unsolved. And honestly, I'm not sure I want to try solving it anymore. The weeks that followed were nothing short of brutal. I threw myself into work just to keep from losing my mind, but every little thing reminded me of her. Her voice, her smile, even the way she used to laugh at the dumbest jokes. I'd see Emily trying to call her on FaceTime, and it hit me hard knowing her own mother had been lying to us for months. It was like a punch to the gut every time I thought about how Lisa had been pretending everything was fine, all while sneaking around with Tommy. I started to realize how much I'd been blind, how I'd trusted her so completely, that I never saw the signs. It's crazy how someone you love can turn into a stranger overnight. I kept replaying that night I caught her, over and over, trying to figure out if there was some way I could have seen it coming, some sign I missed. But honestly, there were none. Just a slow erosion of trust, a gradual slipping away of the woman I thought I knew. And then suddenly she was just gone, like she evaporated into some strange, unrecognizable version of herself. During that time, I also started to focus on myself. I got a therapist, something I'd never done before, and it helped to talk through everything. I told her about the betrayal, about how I felt like my world had been turned upside down. She reminded me that I wasn't the villain here, that Lisa's choices were hers, and that I deserved better. Slowly, I began to accept that I couldn't change her, couldn't make her see what she'd destroyed. The only thing I could do was decide what I wanted for myself now. One day, I sat Emily down and had an honest talk. I told her that Lisa was going away for a while, that she made some bad choices, but that I loved her no matter what. She's only 10, so I kept it simple and honest. No need to scare her with adult problems. I told her that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, but what matters is that we learn from them. Emily didn't fully understand everything, but I could see she was confused, hurt even, and that broke my heart even more. I promised her that I'd do my best to keep her safe and happy, no matter what. Meanwhile, I started to rebuild my life in little ways. I reconnected with old friends I'd drifted from, took up some hobbies I'd abandoned, and just tried to find myself again. The loneliness was brutal at first. Nights were the hardest, lying in that empty apartment, staring at the ceiling, knowing the woman I'd trusted and loved was gone. I'd wake up wondering if I'd ever feel normal again. Some days I felt angry, some days I felt numb. But I kept telling myself this pain wouldn't last forever, that somehow I'd come out on the other side of this stronger. It wasn't just about healing from her betrayal. It was about figuring out who I was now, without her, without the woman I thought was my partner. I knew I had to move forward, but I also knew I couldn't rush it. Time was my only ally right now. I'd been betrayed in the worst way possible, and the worst part, knowing that Lisa didn't seem to care about the damage she'd done. She was still trying to spin her lies, still trying to manipulate her way back into my life, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. One thing I learned through all this: trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to mend. But you can learn to live with that pain. You can rebuild your strength piece by piece. I didn't know what my future looked like, but I knew I'd be okay. I had to be, for Emily, for myself. I just hoped she'd get her act together someday, and that maybe, just maybe, I'd find a way to forgive her. Not for her sake, but for mine. Because at the end of the day, I refused to let her betrayal define me. I'd be damned if I let it steal my happiness forever. By now, I'd been living apart from Lisa for a few months. The initial shock had subsided into a dull ache, and I was slowly trying to put some semblance of normalcy back into my life. Honestly, I didn't expect her to come crawling back or to show any remorse. At first, she kept trying to reach out, sending emails, begging to meet, claiming she was sorry and that she'd change. But I wasn't interested in her apologies anymore. I'd heard enough lies to last a lifetime. One afternoon, I got a text from her. Just a simple "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a long moment, then responded, "There's nothing left to say." I knew that was true. I'd made up my mind, I wasn't going back. But part of me wondered if she actually understood what she'd done. Did she realize how much she'd hurt us? Or was this just another attempt to manipulate me back into her web? Either way, I wasn't falling for it. I decided I needed closure, not just for myself, but for Emily too. She deserved to know what kind of person her mother had become. So I arranged a meeting at a neutral place, one of those cozy coffee shops where nobody would get too emotional. When Lisa arrived, she looked different, more subdued, almost deflated. I could see the guilt in her eyes, but also that familiar bitchy arrogance lurking beneath it. She started with her usual excuses. She missed us, she was overwhelmed, she didn't want to lose her family. I cut her off. "Lisa, I know everything. I saw the messages, the recordings, the photos. You lied to me for months, all while sneaking around behind my back and cheating on me with Tommy, of all people. How could you do that? How could you betray your own daughter like that?" Her face went blank for a second, then she rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, you're just overreacting. You always blow things out of proportion. Tommy's a good guy, and I was just helping Emily with her homework. That's it." I shook my head. "Stop lying. I know the truth. You think I'm stupid. You think I don't see right through your bullshit. You've lied from the start. You're selfish, Lisa. You wanted to feel young, wanted some excitement. You threw everything away because you're bored and entitled." Her eyes flashed with anger. "Bored, entitled. You're the one who's been working all the time, never paying attention to me or Emily. Maybe I needed something else. Maybe I needed someone who actually cared." That hit deep. I felt a flicker of rage, but I kept my voice steady. You didn't need Tommy, you wanted him, you cheated on your own daughter and you think that's okay, that it's just some stupid mistake you can brush off. I looked right at her. You're not the woman I married. You're selfish, manipulative, and you don't give a damn about our family. I don't want to see you again. Stay away from us. She snapped, her face twisted with defiance. You're just angry because I don't want to stay stuck in this boring, predictable life with you. You never understood me, Mike. You're too busy working or whatever to see what I really needed. Maybe I'm better off without you. Maybe I'll find someone who gives me what I want. That was the last straw. I got up, told her to leave, and made sure she understood that this was the end. As she stormed off, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. Part of me wanted to break down, to cry or scream, but I held it all in. I knew this was just the beginning of a long road. The trust was gone, the marriage was over, and I had to rebuild my life from scratch. I looked at Emily playing in the park that evening and realized I had to be strong for her, for myself. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, thinking about everything that had happened. I knew I'd never get the Lisa I loved back. But I also knew I was done chasing after someone who could so easily throw away her family for a quick fuck. I'd learned a lot from all this, about trust, about betrayal, about the kind of person Lisa really was. I understood that sometimes, the only way to survive is to accept the truth, no matter how painful, and move on. It wasn't easy, but I was determined to make a new life, one where I could finally find some peace and maybe even happiness again. Now, after everything, I find myself in a place I never expected to be, single, scarred, but somehow starting to feel a little stronger. It's been a brutal journey, no doubt about it. I lost the woman I thought was my soulmate, the family I thought we had built, and a sense of trust I believed was unbreakable. But somewhere along the way, I also learned a few things about myself, about what I refuse to accept, and about the kind of man I want to be. I think a lot about Emily. She's still so innocent, so unaware of just how much her world has been shaken. I promised myself I'd shield her from the worst of this, that I'd do everything to give her stability and love, even if her mother is gone from our lives. I want her to grow up knowing that sometimes people make terrible mistakes, and sometimes you have to walk away from those mistakes in order to find yourself again. I want her to see that, even in darkness, there's a way forward, a way to heal and rebuild. Looking back, I realize I was naive to think marriage was supposed to be forever. I thought love and trust could conquer anything, but I've learned the hard way that people are complicated, and sometimes they destroy what they once promised to protect. Lisa's betrayal was a devastating blow, but it also opened my eyes to the importance of boundaries, honesty, and self-respect. I refuse to be a victim of her choices. Instead, I choose to be the man who rebuilds his life on honesty and integrity, no matter how hard it gets. I don't pretend I've fully moved past the pain. Some days are still a struggle, and I carry scars that will probably never fully fade. But I've also discovered a resilience I didn't know I had. Every morning, I remind myself that I deserve better, deserve someone who values the trust and loyalty that Lisa threw away so easily. I've learned that sometimes, the best thing you can do is let go of what's broken and focus on what's still standing. And what's still standing now is a man who refuses to be defined by betrayal. For anyone out there going through their own heartbreak, I'll say this: don't shut down. Don't let the pain turn you bitter or make you believe you're unworthy. Take the time to grieve, to heal, and to rediscover yourself. Trust is fragile, yes, but it can be rebuilt, just not with the people who betray you. Focus on your own growth, your children, your dreams, because in the end, that's what really matters. You can survive the worst kind of betrayal and even come out stronger on the other side. I know I did.